Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. For today's Thriller Thursday, I'm really excited as I'm doing a collab video with Emma Nicole. We both thought this would be a really good idea as we upload similar content. We both like filming beauty and true crime related videos. So what we thought we would do is I would choose a true crime story to cover on my channel that has happened close to where I live, and Emma would choose one to cover on her channel that happened close to where she lives. So we are both going to be telling the stories together. So I will leave the link to Emma's video and channel down below. You should definitely go check her channel out. She is such a lovely girl and I love her videos so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma Nicole and I'm really excited to be collabing with Millie today. As she said, we have very similar channels and content. I have a True Crime Tuesdays series every week and I also post beauty, fashion and lifestyle content twice a week, so I would love for you guys to check out my channel. And over on my channel, for the part 2 of this video, we're going to be covering the unsolved murder of Elsa Hanaway, so I would love for you to check that out after this one.
So the case we're going to be covering on my channel is the solved case of Becky Watts. I just want to do a little disclaimer before we start and say that we mean no offence by making these videos. It's just for educational and awareness purposes. So Rebecca Marie Watts, also known as Becky Watts to friends and loved ones, was a 16-year-old girl born on June the 3rd, 1998. She lived in Bristol with her dad Darren and stepmom Angie, who had actually been in her life since she was the age of 2, so was pretty much like a mum. So Becky's real mum was called Tanya, and due to financial problems and some other sort of situations as well, Becky lived with her dad. Becky also had a biological brother called Daniel Watts, who was 2 years older than Becky, and Daniel had lived with Darren and Angie, his stepmom, for most of his life until he was a bit older and decided to live with his biological mum. Becky also had a stepbrother called Nathan, who was Angie's son to a previous marriage, and he was 10 years older than Becky. So Nathan actually lived with his nan due to Angie's previous financial problems, but after all that was sorted, he still wanted to stay with his nan because his friends and school were where they lived at the time. But he would visit them on weekends.
They were like brother and sister and they acted like it as well. We was a little family unit, weren't we? Yeah. We'd be a little dysfunctional because we're all from, you know, we had different parents and partners and all that sort of thing. But no, we all linked together. We was quite a strong little unit.
So Becky absolutely loved her brothers. Even at the age of 2, she wanted to play with them on their video games and was one of those annoying siblings who would just follow you around all day long. And when Becky was the age of 2, her first proper clear word was Nathan. However, Nathan unfortunately didn't have the same love for Becky as she did for him. He got very jealous if his mum Angie shown her any more attention that she did for him. And by Nathan being 10 years older than Becky, and Becky being only 2 at the time, obviously she would sort of need more attention. Nathan got on slightly better with Becky's biological brother Daniel, as he was 2 years older than Becky, so he was 4, so he could join in with the video games and other games a bit more.
When Becky was 11 years old, she went to secondary school where unfortunately she was bullied quite badly by the other children. They would pick on her for anything that they could, but a lot of the time it was over her weight. So this made Becky very insecure about her weight and her size. She would come home from school every day crying, and she said that she wanted to lose weight in the hope that this would stop the bullying. From what we found and what we could tell, Becky was a healthy teenager. She was not overweight, but her dad and her stepmom wanted to do anything they could to make her happy and improve the way that she was feeling. So they bought a lot of healthy foods for Becky, because if this was going to make her happy, then they wanted to do that. And very quickly Becky lost a lot of weight, and her family was noticing that she was leaving a lot of food on her plate after meals, and she was basically just wasting away because she was losing so much weight. It got to the point where her dad and her stepmom had to take her to the doctors, and at age 12 Becky was diagnosed with anorexia and she was nearly taken into hospital. But unfortunately the bullying still continued, and it had probably gotten worse because Becky had started to miss school. And this led to Becky's family beginning to receive legal threats if their daughter did not return to school. As well as all of this, Becky's stepbrother Nathan had also begun bullying her at home. He was telling her that she was overweight, that she needed to lose weight, and although she was already extremely thin, she began losing more weight, and this just made her feel even more worse. And her stepbrother Nathan was aged 23 while he was doing this, so he was bullying a 12-year-old girl when he was 23 years old. But by the age of 13, Becky had recovered from her anorexia and she was back to eating healthily and a bit more normally. She also seemed a lot happier within herself, and things seemed to be going really well for her. But when Becky was age 15, her stepmom Angie was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, which was really hard on the children and on her partner Darren. As well as Becky's eating disorder, she also suffered from anxiety, which was possibly caused by the anorexia. Despite Becky not having a very good relationship with her stepbrother Nathan, the relationship with the rest of her family seemed pretty good. Becky and her dad Darren did have the occasional argument, but who doesn't? It was just kind of a normal family situation. But during one of these arguments, Darren actually kicked Becky out of the house and she was forced to go and stay with one of her friends for a while. Becky was a shy girl, and according to her dad Darren, she was always very clingy to people. Because of this, Becky had only a small group of friends, but they were all extremely close and she was always in contact with them and felt very comfortable with them.
She had tons of confidence with us. She felt secure and safe. But the minute she went out for that front door, she was timid and mousy.
But on Thursday the 19th of February 2015, Becky went quiet on social media, which was very unusual, and she had stopped replying to her friends' messages. Her friends were a little bit worried, but not too worried, because obviously her phone could have died or she could have just been busy. So Becky went quiet on social media on the Thursday, but her family had actually not seen her since the Tuesday evening, because the Wednesday she went out with friends for the day and she'd stayed at a friend's house the same evening. When Becky didn't return home on the Thursday, her stepmom Angie just presumed that she decided to stay another night at her friend's house because it was half term from school and they did have a lot of sleepovers in this time.
Angie also couldn't get hold of Becky. She wasn't replying to any text messages or phone calls. So Angie was obviously worried, but she just come up with like a reasonable explanation to why she wouldn't have been replying. Maybe her phone was dead, or she was just having fun with her friends and wasn't really looking at her phone. The next day, on Friday the 20th of February 2015, no one had seen or heard from Becky in 3 days. So by this point, friends and family obviously started to worry. Becky never actually had any of her family on social media, just her friends, so it was her friends that noticed when she was no longer active. So when her friends realised that something was definitely wrong, they decided to go to Becky's house. So when the friends went to Becky's house, they asked her stepmom Angie if Becky was there, but Angie had assumed this whole time that she was out with her friends. So when all of Becky's close friends turned up at the house without her, she started panicking and called Becky's dad, Darren, straight away. This was obviously very out of character for Becky, as she was a very shy girl and did suffer with anxiety. She only felt comfortable around very few people, and when all the few people that she did feel comfortable around were all together, who else would she have been with?
I remember just being so confused as to where she was. She wasn't the type of person that would go somewhere and not tell people where she was going. She wasn't the kind of person to stay out late either. She'd always go to bed really early.
So Becky's stepmom Angie called her dad, Darren, straight away, and he came home from work.
This is so far out of her character that there is no way she has done this. Something has happened, and I don't know where she is, and we need to find her, and we need to find her fast.
So Darren sent all of Becky's friends upstairs to her room to have a look to see if anything looked out of place or if anything was missing, as if she had took something with her. When they looked around her room, they realised that her phone, laptop and tablet were all missing, as if she took them with her and maybe ran away. But none of her essentials had gone. Her makeup, clothes and money were all still there. Because this obviously worried them, her stepmum Angie and dad Darren both called the police at 4 p.m. on the 20th of February.
Even Somerset Police, how can I help? It appears my daughter's gone missing. Okay. No one has seen her, no? No. We phoned round the family, all her friends have contacted us, asking where she is, and none of them know. What's her name? Rebecca Watts.
So by this point, Becky hadn't actually been seen for 48 hours. And in a lot of other cases, 48 hours is a very dangerous time to go missing for. But obviously no one had realised until then, so there was nothing they could have done. When a child goes missing after 6 hours, the chances of finding them are actually halved. And then 12 hours, they're halved again, and so on. So the fact Becky had gone missing for 48 hours means the chances of finding her alive were very slim. So Becky's dad and stepmum had reported her missing at 4 p.m, but police didn't turn up at the house until 6 p.m, 2 hours later. So when police arrived, Becky's friends and family told them about what had happened the last time they had seen her and sort of their relationships with her. And this was actually when Shauna, Becky's stepbrother Nathan's girlfriend, told the police something that no one else knew. Shauna told police that she thinks that Becky was in the house the morning before, on the Thursday morning, and she thought this because she was also in the house. However, Shauna actually never saw Becky, she just heard noises and assumed it was her. Initially, police thought because Becky was the age of 16 that she may have just gone away somewhere to take some time for herself, but Becky's family knew that this was very out of character for her and that she wouldn't have done this.
So soon after this, a big social media campaign was set up and it was called #FindBecky. Her face, her name and her story was shared everywhere and it was seen by over 2 million people. So there are two main theories as to what had happened to Becky. Either she was kidnapped or she had run away. So during the public appeals which her family would take part in, they had to appeal to both these scenarios. So they had to appeal directly to Becky in case she had run away and she was watching the news and tell her how much they loved her and ask her to come home. But at the same time, they also had to appeal to a possible kidnapper or someone who was holding Becky at their house if she had run away.
Bex, if you're watching this, please come home. We love you so much.
We really are so loved. And if you call Dad, please come home or whoever's sheltering her, do the right thing.
Bex, if you can see this, get in contact. And if anyone out there knows something, just tell us. Just bring her home safe. If you've got her, then put her somewhere we can find her. We want her home, please.
Lots of people, including police and volunteers, were all searching the local area, looking for Becky or looking for her belongings that she'd taken with her, her phone, her laptop or her tablet. The main places that were searched and inspected in the local area were houses, in case Becky had run away or in case a kidnapper was holding her there. They also searched in woods, parks and lakes, but nothing was found. There was just no evidence of Becky. Because of this, police then decided to interview Becky's friends and family, anyone who she may have been close with or who could have any information. They also did this just to get to know Becky a little bit more and kind of learn her routines and what she liked, in case that could provide any evidence as to where she'd gone.
We were able to look for any things that didn't fit with the norm, so patterns that didn't fit with a normal week or accounts from what had happened in the critical day that again didn't seem right.
Days went by and the search continued, but still nobody had heard or found anything. So police decided to have a look at friends and family's alibis for the day that Becky had gone missing. The police questioning focused mainly on Becky's stepbrother Nathan and his girlfriend Shauna because they were the last people who were known to be in the house with her, so they could have seen her or could have known where she went. While they were interviewing Shauna, police noted that she was very giggly and she was laughing and not really taking any of the questioning seriously. So that could have meant she thought it was all a joke to her, or it could have also been a nervous laugh. But if she was nervous, police were obviously wondering why she was so nervous and did she actually have some involvement in this. And during Nathan's interviewing, he seemed very calm and very relaxed, and just like he wasn't bothered about the whole situation and the fact that his little sister had gone missing.
Nathan and Shauna were the only two people that we interviewed that were actually difficult to pin down.
Does that raise a red flag with you?
Of course, if you've got witnesses or people that are within your investigation that don't appear to want to meet you, it's always going to cause you some concerns.
Although they both seemed suspicious while they were being interviewed, there wasn't really any evidence against them, so police weren't able to do anything about this. 6 days after Becky went missing, her family had to move out of their home so that forensics could search it, because this is the last place that Becky had been seen and the last place that she was known to be alive. Both neighbours and members of the public hadn't seen Becky, and she also hadn't appeared on any CCTV footage, so this made police wonder whether she had even left the house and whether she could still be in there. So the forensics team found some red staining on Becky's bedroom door frame, which they believed to be blood. Near this red staining, they also found some fingerprints, which was some pretty big evidence, so they took all of this back to the lab to be analysed.
It's very, very difficult to see with the naked eye. Some of it was down very low, some of it was about waist height, and some of it was approximately shoulder height. So the three different heights did seem to strike a chord in terms of why, had there been a struggle.
Didn't particularly talk to her, but obviously I don't particularly like her. And obviously what annoys me is the way she speaks to like my mum sometimes. Mm-hmm. She'd be kind of like rude or whatever. I'm trying to think of an actual specific time.
Everything needs to be put in context. The context here was Nathan and Becky didn't appear to get on, so how could that blood be in with his fingerprint in upstairs on the first floor, a location that we don't think Nathan went frequently? So that's the first real big turning point.
Hey, buddy. The reason I've come here is to make an arrest of yourself, okay? And what I'm going to do is explain everything here now, okay?
Just put your hands like that for me, alright?
To start with, they were both arrested for kidnap, as there was no proof that she was dead and she could have still been alive somewhere. During Shauna's interview, police straight away believed that she was lying about something. They didn't know what, but they could just tell by the way she was acting that there was something that she wasn't telling them. And now, because Shauna wasn't actually being interviewed just as a family member, she was being interviewed as a suspect, they were able to question her answers more and try and dig for some more information.
Is there anything that happened that could be significant in the disappearance of Rebecca? No. Are you absolutely sure?
Yes.
I know you've got something to tell us. I can see it in your face.
I was just making sure there was nothing, like a weird, significant thing that I hadn't thought of. But I don't know.
But the same approach didn't work with Nathan, as soon as someone's confrontational with him, he will just block you out straight away.
We want to find her. Where is she?
I don't know where she is.
Is she safe?
Well, I didn't know where she is, so I'm meant to know.
Do you know if she's alive?
Well, no.
Have you hurt her?
No, I haven't hurt her.
Nathan and Shauna both had a home together and lived just over a mile away from where his family and Becky lived. So while the both of them were getting questioned, their house was getting searched at the same time.
Entering the house, opening the front door alone is very challenging. It doesn't open properly because of the extent of the stuff behind the door. There are 2 fridge freezers behind the door.
There's 2 steps of stairs. That's the coffer hallway. Room to the left, which is a living area. Living room.
Each room is jam-packed with material, particularly the lounge, particularly the kitchen. So I go upstairs, turn right into the bathroom, then there's a cooker, there's a microwave. You can barely see the sink. The bath on the right-hand side is extremely clean to the point where it is very, very shiny. So that is what sticks in your mind immediately. It's out of place in context with the rest of the address.
2 receipts were also found in an upstairs cabinet while they were searching the house. Both receipts dated the 19th of February, the day Becky went missing, and they're both for a DIY store in the UK called B&Q, where multiple items were purchased, including a circular saw, face masks, gloves, and also some goggles. Instantly, police believe that they had gone out to buy these in order to dismember a body. When the CCTV was checked, there they saw Nathan walking around B&Q, picking up all of his items and then paying for them at the till. So after seeing this, Nathan and Shauna were both then rearrested for murder, and the police started treating this as a murder investigation.
Your whole world just folds in on itself. They told me this is a murder inquiry, and I know I started shouting at that point. Oh no, 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 you're wrong, she's gotta be alive.
Obviously, during Nathan's questioning, the police were searching the house, but Nathan didn't know this. He knew that eventually the house would be searched, but he didn't know when police were planning to do it, and so he had no idea what they had found. So police decided to carry on questioning him, but tactically they began feeding him this information gradually in the hope that he would admit to what he'd done. And just like the police wanted, this is exactly what happened. Nathan went to speak to his lawyer for a while, and then at 10 PM that night he came out with a large statement which his lawyer read to the police. So this was Nathan's statement. I, Nathan Charles Matthews, accept that I'm responsible for the death of Rebecca Watts. On the 19th of February 2015, I attended Crown Hill St George in Bristol with my girlfriend Shauna. In my car I had a large stun device, handcuffs, tape and a mask. I developed an idea to scare Becky by kidnapping her. I wanted to scare her and teach her a lesson. I believed that she was selfish and her behaviour towards my mother was a risk to her health. A few minutes after arriving, Shauna said that she wanted a cigarette, so she went out into the garden and I went to the boot of my car, took out a bag that contained the items, and I went upstairs to the landing before knocking on Rebecca's door. She replied saying what or hello, and I replied saying can I see you for a minute. I'm not sure in which order things happened, but I used the items I had to subdue Rebecca. During the short struggle, my mask slipped and Rebecca was able to see my face, so I panicked and I strangled her while she was partially in the bag. So this was the end of Nathan's written statement, but he went on to confess further. He said that he had dismembered Becky's body in the bathroom using the circular saw that he had bought. He then also admitted to wrapping up each separate body part and putting them into boxes, bags and suitcases before hiding them in a shed.
The nature of the find is horrific and shocking. I've never dealt with anything like this. And it'll stay with me throughout my service. It'll stay with me probably throughout my life.
And it was 12 days after Becky went missing that her body parts were discovered in the shed. Her body was taken to the morgue where her family could identify her.
When we seen her in the morgue, and that's when it really hit home then. I mean, they did, for police and morgue, they did their best to cover up her, where they'd cut her up and things like that. But I could still see where they decapitated her. No parent should have to see that.
Becky's actual cause of death was suffocation, and this had occurred while she was in her own bedroom. Becky had sustained a lot of injuries, including cuts, bruises and scratches, and some defensive wounds to suggest that she did put up a good fight. The autopsy also discovered that after Becky was dead, her body sustained over 14 stab wounds and other injuries. When they recovered her body, they discovered that it was cut up into 8 different pieces, including a decapitation. When Nathan had hid the body parts in boxes and suitcases, he had also covered the body parts in cling film. The body parts were also packed with cat litter to soak up any moisture and crystal salts to avoid any obvious smells. Nathan also admitted to taping over her eyes and her mouth and to continuously punching her before she died, which obviously doesn't fit with his story that this was an accidental death. So police now had to reinvestigate Nathan's written statement, because even though it was a confession, they still had to look into it because it did not match with the story of the injuries Becky had obtained. So Nathan was making out as if he was innocent and it was an accident that had gone wrong. A lot of people do this in order to have a shorter prison sentence, and he did this because if he was to completely confess to all the brutality of the crime, he would probably receive life in prison. He also didn't really mention Shauna at all, apart from the beginning when he mentioned that she went out for a cigarette, which kind of implies that she was not involved in this and she had no idea what was going on the whole time.
Police found the fact that Shauna had no idea what was going on and nothing to do with it really hard to believe, because obviously they would have had to transport Becca's body from where she lived to their house, and they would have done this using their car, which Shauna would have been in also. Nathan also dismembered the body at their house, where Shauna also lived. So it was pretty much impossible for her to be oblivious to the whole situation. Police think that Nathan was just trying to keep Shauna out of the whole situation and fully take the blame himself.
He's trying to take the heat away from her. It was almost like there was an agreed path that they were going to walk, that they were going to lie to a certain point. If the heat came on top, Nathan would accept culpability.
So police tried to use the same approach with Shauna. They started to feed her little bits of information to try and see if she would confess or admit to anything. So police decided to tell Shauna that Nathan, her boyfriend, had just admitting to killing his sister, Becky, and also admitted to dismembering her body.
What's your knowledge of him killing Becky?
Found out yesterday morning.
You found out yesterday morning?
Prior to that, I had no idea that he had any involvement in anything at all.
So now Nathan had confessed, police decided to ask him more questions and was trying to find out why he did it.
Was Becky stood up, Nathan, whilst you were strangling her?
No comment.
To what degree was she incapacitated then?
No comment.
Was she conscious at the time that you strangled her?
No comment.
The main reason they did this was to give Becky's family some sort of closure. Police interviewed the couple for a total of 96 hours, as this was the maximum legal amount that you're allowed to be interviewed for. And then at the end of this, Nathan was charged with the murder of Becky. But police were still trying to find some sort of connection between Shauna and Becky, as they didn't believe that Shauna had nothing to do with it. It took 2 months, but police finally found some evidence that may suggest that Shauna did have something to do with the murder of Becky. So police decided to look through the couple's phones. They had already done this, but they didn't look through the deleted section as this took a lot longer to find. When they finally found the deleted section, they found some text messages between Nathan and Shauna, which shows their real plans for that day, the murder, and how Shauna was involved. So Shauna was re-questioned, and this time it was on the messages that they had found.
So it showed internet searching of pornographic material of around Becky's age, but it also showed some text messaging between the two of them where they were talking about young females, potentially abducting a young female and taking them back to their home address and putting them in their loft.
There was also a lot more text messages between the two talking about kidnapping a young petite girl and keeping her in their attic to use as a sex slave. So the texts go against what Shauna said about not having any involvement in what has happened. Now that police had seen these messages, they knew that this murder wasn't an accident and that it may have actually been planned. While the text messages were being analysed, Shauna's DNA was also found on one of the face masks by forensics. When Becky's dad, Darren, and stepmom, Angie, found out all of this information, they had actually realised that they saw signs of this happening for quite a while. So Nathan never actually liked Becky, and Darren and Angie just put this down to siblings being siblings, as siblings do argue. But Nathan was jealous of Becky as she was 2 years old when they met, and she always got more attention from his mum, Angie. He always bullied her about her weight and looks, and felt as if that she always spoke to his mum as if she was worthless. But then a lot of family members and friends said the same about Nathan, that he spoke to his mum the same way as well.
Since all of this has happened, psychologists looked at Becky and Nathan's relationship and the fact that he had a constant need to make her life a misery, which is obviously not a normal sibling relationship. One of the theories is that because of Nathan's attraction to young petite girls, maybe he had a subconscious attraction to Becky, and because he knew this and he knew that it was wrong to feel this way, he decided to be really horrible and take it out on her. Because Becky had mental issues such as anxiety, she often saw a counsellor, and when she was age 12, she told this counsellor that she was actually afraid of her brother Nathan, who was 23 at the time. So the counsellor did tell Becky's dad Darren what she'd said about being afraid of Nathan, and her dad said that she'd never mentioned this before. Nathan's family, including his mum Angie, knew that he had had a past with younger girls. The first was when he was 19 years old. At this age, Nathan had had 4 12-year-old girls in the back of his car, and he took them back home to his family home. Luckily, Darren was there, and he told Nathan to take the girls back to wherever he found them and that he would not let them into the house. He also described this as borderline paedophilia. Darren now says that he's been beating himself up about this because it could have been a warning sign as to what was going to happen to Becky and as to the kind of person that Nathan really was. At the age of 21, when Nathan began seeing Shauna, Nathan told his family that she was 19 years old, but they said she didn't look any older than 14. The family prevented Nathan from having Shauna in the house, and they said they weren't going to allow it until they had seen a birth certificate that could prove that Shauna was legal age. So Nathan and Shauna have both been arrested for murder, and then a further 4 people were arrested for assisting an offender. These 4 people were Donovan Demetrius, Carl Demetrius, Jadine Parsons and James Island. These 4 people were all arrested for assisting Nathan and Shauna in hiding Becky's body parts in the shed. Police found this out through a series of text messages between everyone in which Nathan and Shauna said they would pay a 5-figure sum of money to anyone who would help them hide something. These 4 people argued that they didn't realise it was a human body, they thought it was cannabis that they were hiding, but they never actually asked what was in the bags.
So Nathan and Shauna's trial began October 2015. Shauna stuck with the same story, that she had nothing to do with it, didn't know what was going on, and was outside in the garden having a cigarette. That she had no idea Becky was murdered. Nathan also stuck with his story, that everything was an accident until it all went wrong. After a short deliberation, Nathan was found guilty of murder and Shauna guilty of manslaughter. They were both charged with kidnap, perverting the cause of justice, and also possession of 2 stun guns. Nathan was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 33 years, whereas Shauna was sentenced with 17 years. 7 months later, in June of 2016, both of them tried to appeal their sentences to get shorter prison time, but these were both rejected as their sentences were both justified. And that is everything for this case. I hope you enjoyed. I really enjoyed making this video. It was really fun to work with another YouTuber. I'd love if everyone could go and check out Emma Nicole's channel. The link will be down below, and also the video that we're doing on her channel, so go watch that as well. If you enjoyed, please give this a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.